When you're thinking about selling your home, do you think, I have a unique property? I just don't want some postage stamp realtor that sells stuff in downtown to come and list my beautiful lifestyle home. Do you have a creek, trees, a view, land, horse features? Then you deserve a lifestyle real estate agent. This is the ultimate seller's guide for how to sell unique properties. Have you ever walked into someone's house and they say, hey, hello, how are you? And you go in your own head, really smells like dogs. Or you drive in on someone's property and you're like, this guy's got a lot of crap out here. We become nose blind to our own surroundings, especially when you're selling lifestyle real estate, country home, horse property, timberland property. A lot of equipment adds up, a lot of tarps add up, a lot of hoses add up, a lot of these things add up. It's time to get out the spray, get out the brush hog, and really get your property cleaned up. The last thing that you want someone to know or someone to look at when they see your property is, look at all the work we're gonna have to do if we buy this place. We want it to be a clean slate, a blank canvas, something that they see as opportunity, not work. I kind of came up on a property in North Clark County, just outside of Amboy. It had been on the market for about 4 months and they hadn't gotten really any showings. It was with a different realtor, it wasn't with us. And I said, well, let me just come down, take a look, let me see what I can do. And I cruised, it was 10 acres. I cruised all 10 acres. I walked tree lines like this. I went into the outbuildings. I checked out the fences. And what I came to realize was that it looked like crap. It wasn't well maintained. There was, and I'm telling you the truth when I say this, there was 2 feet of pig manure in one of the barns. They were homesteading. And I went back to the seller and I was like, listen, I can't sell this property in this condition. We need to do some serious updates and some work to get this place ready. I said, everybody's just gonna see work. So we spent about a month on that property, brush hogging, taking down some timber, clearing blackberries, removing some outbuildings, old chicken coops and things like that. And those are the types of things that we have to do to show a clean slate. You know, that's in terms of the outside of the property. The inside of the property or the inside of the home's a different story. You know, the old adage is you work on the land, you live in the house. So the house has to work for whoever is buying this property. And when you're into multi-million-dollar properties, you have out-of-state buyers, they don't all live like you. So the point is we have to adapt kind of the way we're living, the way our property looks to appeal to a large number of buyers, if that makes sense. Things like washing windows, shampooing carpets, touching up paint, that's all really important and it's typically always worth the expense. Now there are some things that aren't worth the expense and that's what's really important about me kind of cruising a property, going through the house, giving you input, and that process starts nice and early in the game. So if you're gonna launch or sell your home in March and April, you'd want to get me there a few months early so I can kind of help navigate some of those things. And if we need to utilize some of the services like brush hogging, clearing trees, doing some spraying, stuff like that, we want to get on that before the spring hits. What we don't want to do is miss certain markets because we didn't have that stuff ready. You know, one of the other really important things to think about, things like easements, wetlands, surveys, property lines, water lines, power lines. You may know where all of those things are and you can explain them to me, but we really want to lay those out for the buyer. All of those like nuances to lifestyle real estate, country homes, really important to get ahead of before you list the property. You don't want to list a property and then have something like that mess up the sale or even derail the sale. So I think getting those things on paper, laying them out, doing that property prep is going to set you guys up for success when selling that lifestyle property. Disclose, disclose, disclose. Disclosing everything and anything about your property will, 1, keep you out of potential legal trouble, but 2, make you realize some of the value that your property might have. I always say that the more information the buyer has, the better. They're gonna find it out anyways. They have really good buyer agents, they're super savvy, and they're gonna pick your place apart like an onion. They're just gonna start peeling the layers. What we don't want to happen is a potential buyer to figure out something on a property that they didn't know beforehand halfway through the transaction. That can kill the deal. It can lower the price tag. It can do a lot of damage to your listing. So I always say it's important to disclose absolutely everything. And there are things that you may not realize you have to disclose. Things like easements, access limitations, wetland habitats, timber deferrals, ag deferrals. Are they gonna run those deferrals through closing? These are just some of the little nuances, especially regarding the exterior and land, that you should always disclose. If you purchased an old piece of timber ground from Weyerhaeuser or a railroad, it's highly likely that the mineral rights are retained by those companies, and you have to disclose that. but I'll give you some good examples of how that can also add value. I was selling a place in Skamania Prairie 2 years ago, beauty 65-acre farm. It had been on and off the market for about 10 years, 8 different agents, really savvy sellers. But what we did is we dug super deep into that property and we actually found 2 more legal building lot determinations, which means someone could add 2 more residences to that property, which exponentially raised its value to multi-generational buyers. We had that property sold before we even hit the market. Conversely, you can find out things that are somewhat negative, but in the end will help you out. I was in a situation last year, Bear Prairie, Washougal, Washington, 40-acre timber stand, 800 grand on the stump, pro cruised, killer property. We found out it had an access limitation from 1913. They blew the paperwork over 100 years ago. We had to do a quiet title action, retain an attorney, but ultimately we got what the buyer wanted, we got what the seller wanted, and we got the property sold. But that was months that we had to kind of fumble through that, and it could have been dead on arrival to risk-adverse buyers. In this case, we ultimately did get the seller top dollar for their timberland. Things like that shouldn't scare you. You always want to get ahead of it. We like to do the work of the buyer agent. We like to be the ones to peel the onion for you to say, hey, does any of this exist on your property? Because if it does, let's disclose it now and get it out of the way. Marketing's everything. How do you market lifestyle real estate? You show it through visuals. Our media team's top notch. Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, Facebook posts that go far and wide. We do things like luxury home magazines, the thermal classifieds, the Plaid Horse, Haven, Lifestyle, that's out of Seattle. That's an extra 25,000 people that are gonna see your home. We're one of the only companies in the Pacific Northwest that exclusively is doing long form video walkthroughs on YouTube. With me, a long form video walkthrough, 20 minutes. An interactive map, 5 minutes. A YouTube short, 60 seconds. An Instagram Reel, 90 seconds. It's pretty dang impressive how long we can keep a potential buyer on your property. That's one more buyer that's thinking about it a little longer than the competition. This is real estate, not Reno. We don't use our gut, we don't use our feeling, and we definitely don't roll the dice when we price properties. Guys, there's 3 types of sellers in this world. And the reason why I'm doing this video and I'm giving kind of this snippet about pricing is because I think it's the most important aspect to selling a property. After all, time on market is the enemy to your home's value. All right, so there's seller number 1. They overprice their property. They think there's that holy grail buyer, that Californian who might not know local real estate markets, that have cash, that are gonna totally overpay. I hate to say it, that's not gonna happen. If you get an offer at all, I guarantee you it'll be a lowball offer and they're gonna use all that time on market as leverage against you. Then you have the type of seller that prices their property right at market value. They look at the facts, they look at the CMAs, and they try and hit the nail perfectly on the head. Not a bad approach. I work with a lot of sellers like that. Typically, we'll get half a dozen showings. It'll sit on the market for 30 days, 45 days, 60 days. You might get an offer, but it's definitely not going to be competitive. Then there's the way I like to do it. Price it just below the market value. If you think about the best auction houses in the world when they're selling paintings and sculptures and multi-million-dollar ranches, one-offs like lifestyle property is, they always set the initial price just below the market value. That gets the item or the house more views, more showings, more buyers, and ultimately, you guessed it, more offers. You're creating that beautiful buyer frenzy. You're getting people amped up. They're seeing competition and likely they're gonna pay over the asking price and you will likely see multiple offers. Of course, I can't promise that. It depends on the market, it depends on the home, but if it's a house that has a lot of great attributes, I think that's gonna be your best pricing method. If you guys want more information and more ideas and strategies on how to appropriately price your property, we'll sit down, we'll collaborate, we'll go through the numbers. It will not be our gut. It will be the facts that tell us. Until next time, guys.